Hello, everyone. My name is Sabrina Young, and I'm with Young's Daughters Funeral Home and Bereavement Center. I'm really excited to introduce to you today a co-authors. Their names are Lacie and Katherine. They are co-authors of In Loving Memory book. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. Um, welcome.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
So if you wouldn't mind, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and then what inspired you to collaborate in writing the book In Loving?
I'm Katherine Pendergast, and I'm a children's author by background, and so I've wrote and published several other books. And Lacie and I, we both work in the funeral industry, and we were just talking one day about the resources available, and we felt that maybe collaborating would be a great idea to create a book and a resource and a tool for families and funeral homes that would help children kind of go through the process of the funeral and then also start getting into grieving and mourning activities. And I'm from Bismarck, North Dakota. That's where I live. That's where I grew up. And I have a 9-year-old son and, just also work on the pre-need side of things in the funeral world, I guess.
Well, thank
Yeah, and my name's Lacie Brueckner, and I met Catherine. She works in pre-need, and I'm a funeral director. And one day we got to visiting about how there's just not a lot of resources out there for kids. So we decided to collaborate with her children's book writing background and me as a funeral director, and we put these books together. And like I said, I'm a funeral director, and I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota. My husband and I have 5 kids.
Wonderful. I'm so excited that you guys are in the funeral industry, and it's great to see the evolution of funeral stuff going on within instead of being on the outside. I don't know. You guys seen a lot of people approaching the industry, so devising these books and curriculums and things and bringing that in, from within is always heartwarming to see. So hats off to you, ladies, and being moms. I'm a mom of 5 as well, so I understand that. Are your kids in the funeral business right now?
No, mine currently are not yet, and I don't know that any of them will. So I've got one's out of the house and married. So he's got his own thing going. Our oldest is in college. She's not going the funeral route, and I don't know if any of the others will, but the youngest, we're holding out hope yet.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to learn about your book. So please tell us about the book itself.
So there's actually 2 versions of it. This is the more traditional one with a body present, and this one is cremation, just because visually what you see can be very different. And so we did 2 versions of it. But most of the words are identical. The storyline is the same. And throughout the book, we put in different elements to the book, and one of the things that really stands out are the illustrations, very soft illustrations, very gentle words. There's places where you can put a picture of your loved one, and um, and basically the storyline is that Harper, she's a young girl, and her grandma dies, and it's just kind of a difficult time, and starting that conversation. How do you start the conversation that a loved one has passed away? So we kind of walk through that, and then she decides that she wants to be part of the funeral process, and just showing little ways that children can maybe be involved in the process. And maybe it's just making their favorite cookies and having that be part of the different activities, or sharing a special memory. It doesn't have to be huge or anything. Maybe it's writing a letter or doing whatever feels right for that particular family. And so we have a visitation, we have a funeral, and then a graveside service in the book. And then after all of the activities, there's certain days that are pretty difficult, maybe an anniversary, a birthday, holidays, and things like that. And so we kind of show different ways that you can remember them and honor them and kind of take some action on those feelings. And that's one thing that really worked well for me after my mom, she passed away almost 20 years ago now, but um, just those little things that I would do to honor her and remember her. Usually on Mother's Day, I'd plant flowers in honor of her. And that was an activity that we did together on her last Mother's Day. And so that's kind of a special memory for me. And just little things in the book that we kind of incorporated from our own experiences. And, Lacie could probably talk more on this too, but a lot of the elements that she wished were in other books out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we had found was there wasn't we couldn't find any books at that time when we first started talking about this that included illustrations for a child of somebody in a casket. We couldn't find that. And so we just thought that, what a wonderful resource or tool to be able to give families that shows a storybook for a child that shows a casket. I know it's a hard subject to talk about. It's a hard subject to illustrate. It's kind of one of those taboo, not really talked about so much, but it's so important. So to have those illustrations of grandma in a casket turned out beautiful and is, I think, kind of one of the more important parts of that book.
And
Well,
it
it
gives
sounds
children
like
the
I love the fact
opportunity
that you
to.
incorporated that. I love the fact that you took it from the beginning all the way through the service to help the littles to understand. I've done plenty of interviews with my kids as they were growing up from, 5 all the way up to 20 and their experience of, the funeral industry so that other kids could relate to their experiences. And so seeing an illustration like that in a kid-friendly, comforting, how did you guys come up with creating that imagery to something so soft that the kids could understand? Like, how did that come about?
Well, we worked pretty closely with the illustrator and, just really emphasized what we were looking for. And I think she just totally knocked it out of the park as far as getting that soft, not scary, and just kind of opening up the window to allowing our kids to ask questions and to prepare them for what they might see.
Yeah, and so the children, I like how you're including children into the ceremonies and the services. Before we would have funeral ceremonies within our home, it was a part of living, of dying was a part of life. And kids were involved in that, but we kind of we moved into, okay, now we have a centralized location. Parents will make up derivatives that say, oh, this little one is sleeping, and they have all these, fantasy ideas of how to turn the actual process of passing. So tell me a little about how you wanted to encompass the comfort level of the child as well as parents, making that an important message for the families. Can you talk about how they are able to participate in funeral services?
Well, I think one thing that we kind of did by making it not necessarily super realistic, but in a way it is. It's the reality of what's happening. And that was kind of on purpose that death is real. And sometimes that gets confusing when you watch movies and video games where death isn't really like that. All of a sudden, someone might be coming back to life, and this is, grandma's not sleeping. She's not going to wake up. She's not going to suddenly be back. And when someone truly dies, we celebrate them, we remember them, and the importance of a funeral and why we do all these things. And in a video game, they're not having a funeral. They're not celebrating this person. And it's not the reality of life. And so I think that was also an important part of the book.
So Lacie, as a funeral director, how has your professional experience shaped the way you approach conversations about death with the children and their families?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, my own, myself, my husband and our kids, obviously grew up in the funeral homes. So we talk about death regularly, and it's a part of life. It's a part of our everyday conversation. But for most families and most people, that is not the case. And so I always encourage people, it's okay to talk about it. And I tell families, we get asked a lot as funeral directors, should my child participate? Should I bring them to the funeral service? Should I include them? And I always tell them, absolutely. Sit down and have a conversation with them. And these books can help start that conversation and get a feel for your kid. And if they want to participate and they want to be there and they're curious and they have questions, answer them. It's okay to talk about it. And at the same time, we also see families where maybe there's a child that's hanging out in the back and they don't want to go up and see grandma. And you hear parents like, well, come on now, you have to come up. It's your last chance. Well, everybody grieves different. And so if a child doesn't and they're showing some hesitation and they don't want to maybe have such an active role in the funeral process, don't force it either. Best word of advice is get a feel for your child, their own individual needs and what's going to be best for them.
Definitely can stand strongly against you with that, stand with you with that one, because I've seen the spectrum where you have those that are ready to run up and give love and appreciate and remember and celebrate. And there's others who are like, I'm not going anywhere near that, so seeing and meeting children where they are is very important. Are you considering writing more books or similar topics and expanding the series in the future?
Yeah, so after we published the In Loving Memory books, we had a lot of feedback and of people wanting maybe a pet version. So we do have another book. It's titled Goodbye Bella. Kat's got it right there. And that is about pet loss. Really beautiful storyline there.
Wow. Well, you guys are really knocking it out of the park. Tell us about the feedback that people are giving. You say you got a lot of feedback, but what are the feedback from like parents and caregivers and even the children that are reading these books? Have you guys gotten any solid reviews or feedback from them?
I think there's been all kinds of different feedback that we've received from all different avenues, and it's just kind of I don't know, almost rewarding to hear those stories because it really reiterates why we did it and why we wanted to provide this tool. But maybe the most surprising thing that happened was all of the adults that said it helped them as an adult. There was a lot of adults that had never attended a funeral before and they didn't know what to expect. So how do you explain what's going to happen or prepare your kids when you've never experienced it yourself as an adult or throughout your childhood? So that was kind of one thing that was a little bit surprising. And also just the little things that gave them ideas to do when a loved one has died. There's just so much going on, and to find other tools and resources that maybe are a couple hundred-page books and it takes a long time to get through that. This is a 32-page children's books with illustrations, and there's some pretty big ideas in there to just, or maybe little ideas, making cookies and preparing for maybe their birthday is going to be really hard or Christmas is going to be really hard. And maybe we still celebrate them on that day and do something to honor them and remember them. So that was probably the most unique thing. And also, Lacie kind of on the funeral side of things, funeral directors just appreciating that tool. And I don't know, Lacie, if you have anything to add
Yeah,
to that.
absolutely. We get asked a lot by families, hey, we had a family member die and we've got kids and we don't even know how to even start this subject at all. Do you have anything to give us to help? And to have these books on hand to be able to hand to a family and say, we've got a little storybook that you can read to your children and start that conversation has been very, very helpful for families.
So within your funeral home, you guys will let the family borrow these books or do you promote them? How do you incorporate the funeral homes? Like, even if me, as an ally of funeral home, how can I take these books from you and applying to our families, our community? Do you have any suggestions how you want your books distributed throughout even Temple, Texas?
I think a lot of like local funeral homes up here in North Dakota, just because Catherine and I are around, I think a lot of them they buy the books from us, and then, they have the option, they can sell them to families, but I think a lot of them, Catherine, if I'm correct, give them away. And that's what
Yeah.
I a lot of times will, of course, if a family's going to want 20 of them, yeah, we might have to charge for it. But, if they're only needing one or two, for me personally, anyways, a lot of times I just give them away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes in arrangements, they might ask the question, are there any children that will be attending the funeral? And if they say yes, or we're not sure yet, well, here's a book that might help in this regard, and just give it to them at that point.
Yeah. I think it's great. I want to make sure that the communities, as you guys have more interviews and become more well-known around the industry and with funeral homes and sharing your books, how can other people that are interested in finding your book, how can they find them?
Yeah, so they're always available on our website, catsocks.com, and it's KATSSOCKS.com. They're available on Amazon and then any major bookstore or retailer out there as well. One thing with when someone dies, there's not a lot of time to do things. And so that's where it really is nice when they're right there at the funeral home and they can get them immediately and not have to worry about shipping and different things like that.
Well, I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I can't wait to bring them here and to share with our community, and read them and see. I'm gonna try to get maybe my 5-year-old to review it, and my 11-year-old, and give you guys some feedback and see. It'd be interesting to see what they think. So finally, what does the book mean to you personally, and what do you hope the lasting legacy will be of your prints?
Well, no, I'll go first, Lacie, and I'll let you go. Sorry. But I think one thing that we truly wanted to do was to help children and parents who have kids attending a funeral for that first time. There's a lot of tools out there for maybe attending kindergarten for the first time, or learning how to do an activity for the first time. And we just really didn't see anything out there for attending a funeral. And so we just wanted to help prepare them for that day and make that day less scary and unknown, and give them the opportunity to ask questions and be curious and express their feelings, um, and help the parents too. What do you even say to your kids? And you're trying to navigate this grief yourself too. You lost a loved one, but so did your kids. So how do we help them? And this was kind of our answer to that. And so I hope that it continues to help many families throughout the years.
Yeah, that was pretty much what I would say too, Catherine. That was perfect.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So, same. So for me, when I was a kid, I had a great grandparent that had died, and I wanted to go. It was a step great grandparent, and I think that's part of the reason why my mom at the time, because I was young, it was a step great grandparent. I didn't maybe know him. I knew him, but not that well. I wasn't allowed to go. And I was young, and I remember very vividly wanting to go. I was curious. I had questions. I remembered who he was. And my mom, thinking she was doing the best for us kids and keeping us away from the sadness and the grief and everything, it bothered me for a long time. And so if these books can help facilitate a conversation to help families include those kids that do want to be there, that's one of my ultimate goals with the books.
Well, I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I think the legacy is going to be there. I'm very excited that the industry has, again, developed from the inside, and I think you ladies are doing just awesome stuff for the education purposes and making sure that we have resources to keep promoting education around death and dying in the space that it is. So hats off to you. I want to make sure that if anybody wanted to speak with you, or if I wanted to follow up with feedback or questions, the best way I think to get a hold of you guys is going to be through your email. Is that correct?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I want to make sure that they have it. It's gonna be cats with an KATSSOCKS.com. So cats@catsocks.com. And ladies on, thank you so much again for being here and sharing your resources.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.